Good morning, everybody. How is everybody doing today? 1 second while I do this last little thing, because of course, I always forget to turn it off in the morning. And there we are. Perfect. All right. Hello. How are you all? So those of you who need to run away right now and get some sleep or run to work or do everything else you need to do, I totally understand. Have a good one. Bye, Buttertub. Hi. For all of you lovely new followers, it's lovely to see you. In the mornings, we do more of a relaxing, calm stream. Then we do a more high, energetic, chaotic stream in the afternoon. That is at 4 p.m. MST. And this one here is our 3:30 MST one. Good morning. I'm doing all right. Lovely to see some familiar faces and some new ones as well. Thank you for the follow, Pikachu. I don't think I ever thought I'd thank Pikachu for following, but you know, we have a Pokemon now. Alright, I'm gonna go through and do our thing as we always do. Congratulate those who got first, second, and third. And then say good morning to everybody who checked in. Remember, the reason why we do the whole checking in thing is because Twitch counts the viewers when they check in a lot easier than when they just talk. And this gives me a chance to say good morning to every one of you who wants me to say good morning. So, first off, thank you for getting first Wolfos Untamed. Thank you for getting second J Cosmetology, and congratulations Ziggy on third. I'm very impressed y'all got it in the right order this time. Hi Vividly. How you doing? Alright, and good morning Okami and Wolfos and Jay. Good morning Elliptical Panda and Alenti and Kane. Good morning Amelia and Sleepy Sunny Poppy. Such a cute name. Good morning Solian and My Chemical Flame and Onyx. Good morning Pandragon and Little Nia. Good morning Anya and Glennis Queen. Good morning Sinful Microwave and Ghost Nightlight. I'm still wondering what kind of crimes and sins a microwave could be causing, but you know, I guess I'll find out one day. Unless watching me is a sin, in which case, how dare you? Good morning, Vivian. Good morning, Luck and Calypsy and Shiny. Good morning, Tasha. Oh, get some sleep, Pikachu. Sleep well. Good morning, Tasha, Lunar, and Momu Mia. Good morning, Pinky and Little Mouse. Morning, Red Faye. You know, I'm assuming it's Red Faye, but no, that's how you spell red. For some reason I thought you misspelled red, but I'm also not the brightest bulb in the bulb drawer. I'm tired. Good morning, Echo Infernal and Vividly. Good morning, Silvervang. Thank you for the follow. Angie, Alka, welcome to the menagerie, my new little voidling. Oh, you're fine, Wolfos. Good morning, Alla and Pink. Good morning, Buttertop and Honey and Meow Kitty Cat. Good morning, Sylvie and Eli and Dea. Good morning, Caitlin and Silvervang and Amy. Good morning, System and Casey. Thank you for the follow, Pikachu, and welcome to the menagerie. Good morning, Angie, Alka, Pikachu, Sakona, and AU. And then lastly, welcome, Big Fish. Thank you so much for the follow and welcome to the menagerie. I figured, I know there's a lot of people who've been meaning to follow me, but I thought making a fun little post about VTubing and crashing out about, you know, those who did not know I existed or streamed would get some people to come head over here. And it's worked surprisingly well. I mean, I think we had at least 20 to 30 new followers last night. And we're now at a grand total of, what was it, 3,300 follows? Oh. Yeah, we just passed 3,300. Isn't that insane? We're gonna be hanging out here, playing some relaxed gaming this morning. Thank you for the stretch and the hydrate. Still no update on whether G-Sumps wants to take me under their wing yet. I guess we'll see. We're gonna be doing some hardcore Minecraft, one of my all-time favorites. Good morning, Nixie. It was that video that dragged me over. Exactly, see, I knew it would do something. They will soon if they have good taste. I know, right? I hope so, I hope so. As a child, I yearn for the mines. I also yearn for the mines. It is just crazy, though, to think the amount of people have found us now. I mean, 3,300 here, 2,000 some on YouTube, I think another 2,000 on Instagram, 1,000 on Twitter, and then, what is it, like 24,000 on TikTok now? I don't know how we're going to fit all these people in the basement, but we're definitely going to try. I'm trying my hardest. But it's getting harder and harder to find places to put you all. To start stacking bodies. We might need to start digging new basements. We need a bigger cage and an SCP basement. Alright, you get some sleep, Wolfos. It's lovely to meet you. Oh, get some sleep. This is when I wake up. I saw I just started digging downwards and just stag people. I saw a TikTok this morning because, of course, I am addicted to TikTok, and the guy was all like, I used to wake up at 5:30, but there were so many people waking up at 5:30, so I started waking up at 3:30. I'm like, me too. And he was like, but there were still people waking up at that time. Then I started waking up at 1, and then I woke up, he said I woke up at 7, and it's just too many, and then 5:30, when there was less people, he said he wakes up at 3:30, he said, but that's when the Rock wakes up, and I need to wake up better than the Rock, so I started waking up at 1, he's like, and then I started meeting people with night jobs, and so I woke up at like 12, and I started meeting all the insomniac people, and he said, you know what time I wake up at now? Noon. I'm not waking up late, I'm just waking up early for the next day. I need to start doing that. I'm going to start waking up at noon, and y'all can't call it lazy. I'm just waking up early for the next day. Can you say, it's okay, you're doing your best? I am assuming you didn't want me to say the rest of that. But yes, Solian, it's okay. You are doing your best. Exactly. Y'all are the ones who need to expand the basement for me. Just keep digging. I believe in you. You got this. I kind of want to go back to sleep. I slept really nicely. I also went to sleep way earlier than I have in a long time. Which was like 1 hour longer than I normally sleep, but it felt like so much more. Well, I hope you do, Sleepy. We do stream twice a day, so if that's too much for you, that's totally fine. But stream streaks will be maintained even if you only watch one stream a day. Hello, headset user. I'm doing great. I know, right? Second sleep is the best. It's like having second breakfast. I'm gonna have second breakfast today. I had a weird dream about fixing other dreams. Thank God, man. Wait, write that down. Luna, write that down. That'd be such a good game. Imagine a game where you have to go to sleep and you visit other people's dreams to fix nightmares into dreams. And it's like a cleaning game. where you go through and you have to like remove all the horrors and you wipe up all like the weird stuff and you just rearrange things. That would be such a good game. I would play the heck out of that. And you could also make it like a horror game where you visit and like you have to run through horror stuff and then you would find the source of their trauma and you remove it. Right. I really want more Crime Scene Cleaner. And if I can make any game into Crime Scene Cleaner, I'll be so happy. That's her, Sleepy. Okay. We'll make it Minecraft. Right. I mean, like, you need some drama for the comedy, because traumatized people are funnier. Apparently, if you want to be a good comedian, you need to have a second voice in your head that you talk back to and you make jokes with. So remember, mild schizophrenia if you want to be a comedian. You got this. I'm glad you like my stream and my model. I appreciate it. Alright, where were we? I have 3. You see, that's too many. Because that means the last voice is going to be a critic and it's going to shut down all your comedy. You have to kill one of the voices in your head. Just good luck picking which one. See, that's why you need to become mean girls with the voices in your head. See, you gotta make the second girl be mean to other people. And then you can be one of those comedians who goes, we're not allowed to be funny anymore. And what he means is he's not allowed to be racist on stage. Build a cage for you in Minecraft can do. Oh, I'm sorry you got sick, sweetie. I hope that's too far of a drop. I feel like I'm a coward now that I'm playing hardcore. It's like really don't want to drop too far. I did cage a villager. I don't know why this man keeps insisting on sleeping with me. He's the most important villager, though. Now we should get more honey. You had 5 exams? Oh no. Thank you for the honey, BB. I said BB, but oh wait, I remember something today. Alright, first off, did you know I can do this? We now have a pink shield. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, so the plan for today. Find the ringleader, establish dominance. Exactly. I don't know what we're talking about, but this is what happens when I zone out. Y'all start making plots without me. The number of voices is even. Do you need to make a political cabinet? No, you need to host a podcast. Make sure it's not too many. Are y'all more of like a 2-person podcast group? Like a 3-person? Or do you like big groups for podcasts? I think like my ideal podcasts are one of 2 things. 42 might be too many. You're right. I went to Comic-Con? Oh, that sounds fun. Go back to bed. And tell me about Comic-Con tomorrow. Okay, so my ideal podcast is when you have like 2 main guys. And then you might have like a third voice who's like more of like the backup guy, or like an effects guy. And then you have maybe a fourth person. So, the classic like Joe Rogan style thing. I don't like Joe Rogan, but I like the idea of like, oh hey, dude who's in the booth, pull up a picture of a gorilla riding a motorcycle. But my ideal one are definitely like the Basement Yard podcast, where you have one man who's clearly in love with the other one, but refuses to admit it. He goes all like, yeah man, if I was gay, I'd totally sleep with you. Am I not the first guy you think of when you think about if you were gay who you'd sleep with? And the guy's like, well, I wouldn't, I don't think about that thing. He's like, but why not? Why don't you think about if you'd want to sleep with me? A 2-person podcast with 4 people. Yes. Thank you for the follow, Shy Guggies. Welcome to the menagerie. Oh, I guess, yeah. Need you try to sleep after you eat? Well, eat first. Close your eyes. And we'll figure it out from there. Hi, Jupiter. Hi, sweetie. I mean, yeah. Even I'm thinking about it now, and like, I love, like, even if we talk about like non-talk show podcasts, we talk about like the Magnus Archive. It's always like 2 people talking at a time, at most. There's rarely interaction going up beyond that. Maybe you'll have 3 people in a scene. That feels ideal to me. Much easier to keep track of people. Speaking of, if you do like horror and you've not seen the Magnus Archive, please go watch the Magnus Archive. It's one of the greatest horror story podcasts out there. Incredible. The voice acting is amazing. Every character is compelling. The lore is deep and incredible. Yeah, should I just start reading Reddit stories? Yeah, that's how I'll continue. That's how I'll build my brand, is just start reading Reddit stories. Am I the a-hole for telling my child that I wish they had been adopted by somebody else? My daughter to me, 40, with my daughter too, recently told her that I hate that she exists. Am I the a-hole? And then they're surprised that they are the a-hole. Update. Y'all are just haters. You don't understand the deep, complex relationship I have with my 2-year-old child. She calls me racial slurs. Sorry. I'm sorry, my brain is just kind of like really idling. I know all she can say is goo goo gaga, but I feel the racial tint to those words. Because oh. Sir, you're on my carrots. I could kill you. What do you want? I want this. Thank you. What's an open-eye blossom? What is this? I want this. Very cool. Thank you. Stop being funny. I'm sorry. That's what we're gonna do now for these morning streams, is I'm just gonna make up Am I the Assholes. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to swear. Oh, it's okay, Pikachu. I'll be here later. Don't worry, you can always choose me. hmm I'm gonna adopt a child, but tell them that they're actually from a different planet and that I'm protecting them from intergalactic conspiracy. It's gonna be great. That way I can be like, hey yo, kid, I know you want to go out right now, but the Glorplax Federation is in town today, so you should probably stay in. Cool. I'm in a microwave. What did the microwave do? Oh. Da, da, da. I just like the idea that you're very excited about the existence of microwaves. You're just like, yeah, common microwaves are so cool. Common microwave W. Probably. The eyes will occasionally twitch because the camera's above me, but I look down. I will be adjusting that soon, and I'm also very, very tired. So my eyes are not very well open. Very well open. That's words. I am so good at speaking. You don't even know. Why does it need to be a giant cookie? Why are you filled with greed and sin? Oh, me too. I'm sorry for being late to stream. I was also playing Minecraft. Let's see if we can make you. Why are you small? Grow big, my child. No, I feel that. Skeletons are evil. I'm glad you're also developing a hatred for skeletons. Grow, 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 grow. Oh. And people wonder why I don't play with other people. Oh, well, you could also have like several normal sized cookies. There's also an option. I mean, I suppose that's valid. I'll never understand that. People whose comedy is, hey, I broke all your stuff. Isn't that funny? It's like, no. Why you like this? Your RLs. I could ask you what RL stands for, but I refuse. Instead, we're gonna make things up. Real legs. Your real legs. Normally you have fake ones, but now your real legs are keeping you up. Rock logs. Logs solely composed of rocks. Rat League. You have an underground Rat League. I don't know what kind of sports they do, if it's like a combat thing. But Rat League is a thing now. Enjoy your Rat League. Decided the Rat League is keeping you awake. Congratulations on your new business venture. Nope, Rat League. I refuse to believe that it's only restless leg. You now have a league of rats. You know, I know, like, sociopathic behavior is killing animals, but I feel like there's like some minor sociopathic behavior tied with killing virtual animals repeatedly. Especially when you know there's an emotional connection to those animals. At least it's narcissistic. You rhombus looking square. Gonna start calling all my ops that. You rhombus looking square. That's right, I know you're a square, but you don't look like one. You're a rhombus. Who are my ops? Got a lot of weirdly shaped ops. Mostly they're from preschool, back when I had a lot of issues with shapes. My ops are exclusively forest creatures. Me and that fox out in the woods that be yelling at rabbits. Yeah, I don't know what I'm on today, I'm gonna be honest. You look really easy to draw is one of my favorites. No, but their handler that's blocking you every step of the way. That's the true op. You look like you drop common loot. What loot would you drop if you were taken out? I'm trying to think about it. I guess I'd drop my phone. A few credit cards. And like random snacks I'm having to carry. Can of Monster. Kanmea, do you drink Monster? Is that why you're so short? Because you took too much caffeine? Were you born like that, or did you just stunt your growth? Morning, Emu. How you doing? Oh, you're short before Monster was invented. Y'all, you be hearing this? Carmios. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I feel like Monster is a more relatively new invention. I don't know when, though. I used to drink Amp. Amp was my favorite. It was like Mountain Dew energy drink. It was the best. How are you, lovely? Kind of chaotic this morning. My brain is just on a weird tangent. I think I got too much sleep, and now the loopy juices are available. 2002. Oh. You know what they had when I was young? Balls. BAWLS. Balls soda. It was like higher sugar and higher caffeine. I think they still have them, actually. You find them every once in a while. And people thought it was so funny. I'm drinking bowls. Thank you for the lurkies, me. I really appreciate it. If I get too much sleep, I get tired again. Yeah, they gotta sleep again. Infinite cycle of sleep, never wake up. Thank you for the lurkies. So the container was a blue bottle, and the blue bottle had little bumps on it, like little round bumps. So I thought was pretty much what the balls were just little bumpies. Little bumpy boys. I remember the ones that had little balls. Yeah, I remember those. One of my favorite ones were the Ramune, the Japanese sodas. So I liked their weird little ball thing that they had. Wait, did I do something dumb? Y'all are gonna be making fun of me in a second, aren't you? What did I do? Shut up. That happens. Alright, we're gonna take a spectrum of food. Put this away. And there's all our brand. That's what I need. I need the leather to make books, baby. I'm only kind of cute. Wow, I need to step up my game, don't I? We'll get there one day. Alright, also don't forget that we do have mod applications open. If you're interested in applying for mod, there is forms on the Discord and other words. Oh, enjoy starting your day. I believe in you. You got this. We have a problem. Dang. Who's Jack and why are you feeding them? I zoned out. What are we talking about? Are we talking about like kids shows? You know what I used to watch as a kid? Animaniacs. That was the best. I watched a lot of the cartoons that weren't specifically kid shows. but were family friendly. And you know, I think I prefer shows that are family friendly versus kids shows. Are you the problem? Not that I know of. Like, specifically, if you have things like the Animaniacs or, Freakazoid was great. There's plenty of shows that, you know, it's fine for kids to watch, but they weren't made specifically with kids in mind. It just felt a lot cooler then. I guess the one nice thing about 4Kids TV is, wow, the dubs that they did were insane and hilarious. They were like better for kids, you know. Instead of a cigarette, Sanji's sucking a lollipop that occasionally smokes. And the violence has been censored, so you know it was fine for kids to watch. And like Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the greatest because there was a time where a bunch of guards went to try to capture Senogaiba, and they held him up with them invisible guns. And thank you for the voice. Nami's adopted mother wasn't dead. Yeah, because we all know kids can't handle death. Which, as much as I want to be like, that's a joke. Nah. As a child, I was traumatized by reading Harry Potter, the 5th book. If you don't know what happens, close your ears now, when Sirius Black dies. And since that day, I had a phobia of dying, so, you know. Maybe they had a point when they told us that kids really can't handle death that well at a too young of an age. Just talking about myself being traumatized at a young age by Ribata. Like, not that some kids can't handle, but you know, I was not one of them. That's a lot of copper. Oh yeah, so the plan for today. I'm trying to get just enough redstone and iron to make some compasses. As well, you'll find one eventually. So that I can get a map to a mansion. Yeah, I suppose even Disney did it. But being as family friendly as Disney is, there sure was a lot of death, wasn't there? They're on the school of thought of like, everybody dies. You better learn about this quickly, child. Also, hello, Luna. How do y'all feel about numbers in your names? Just curious. Cause like when I was younger, there's a time where someone's like, oh yeah, you don't want to have numbers in your name. You need to have a real name without numbers in it. And up until that point, I'd put numbers in my name. And then after that point, I never put numbers in my name again. And so you'd spend like an hour trying to find a cool name that you thought nobody else would have. And then you found it and you're like, oh no, somebody else already has this name. Oh. Oh, that is really depressing. Oh, that is so depressing. Oh no. I cannot imagine. You bought your mom a house and then she died and that. Wow. No, I get it. I got you. I got some comfort for you. Ready? Jingle bell, jingle bell rock. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. With every Christmas gone arrive, may your dream be merry. Oh, may all your Christmases be. Anyways. Hey, yo, Christmas songs are goated, though. I sure hope so, Moreau. You could use more sleep. How you doing, sweetie? I got you. All I want for Christmas is you, baby. Alright, top 5 Christmas songs. Let's go. What you got for me? Last Christmas is great. No, I'm sorry, sweetie. Understood, Pikachu. Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie? Grandma got run over by a reindeer is great. Grandma got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You might say there's no such thing as Santa, but as me and Grandpa we believe. I miss those days when people wrote more goofy Christmassy songs. What happened to them days? Nobody writes goofy songs anymore with any seriousness to them. Everyone wants to show off how good of a singer they are, and they need to show off the talents. That makes sense. Want a fun fact about mosquitoes? I sure do. Teen Titans. 1, 2, 3, 4, go, Teen Titans. I got a fun fact about mosquitoes. The female mosquito is the only one that sucks blood, and it's used in the process of creating its children. The male mosquito is more of a pollinator and drinks nectar. This is why the male mosquito is the primary pollinator for the cocoa bean plant. Getting rid of the male mosquito would result in a death of chocolate. Oh no, why you? I mean, fair enough. I can't stop you. Yeah, mosquitoes be chill like that. And it's the male mosquitoes. So that means that whenever you're getting sucked by a mosquito, you're getting sucked by they. Oh my gosh, God, I did not know that. So we can kill all other mosquitoes except the cocoa midge. Excellent news. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. No, we're gonna do a little bit of a... I also like my voice. I'm kind of stuck in Southern because I forgot to stop doing it, and now I'm still... Honey Bunch, you didn't need to go in there. What are you doing? Alright, you know what? Come on out. Why are you being surrounded by babies? Come here. Come on out. There we go. Don't be dumb, don't you? Oh, you. Come on. Get out of there. There we are. Jeez. Are you the farmer I've been sleeping with? Did you lose your job? No, you ain't allowed to sleep with me anymore until you get employed again. You stole my bed. It ain't occupied. Get out of my... I don't want to hurt him. Alright, we're back. Normal voice time, yay. Oh wait, did you get assaulted by ladybugs? Wait, does that mean y'all were around when the ladybug? I remember that. Well, that man died. Remember when there was that big swarm of ladybugs years back? People getting attacked by ladybugs. That's when everybody learned that being touched by a ladybug was good luck, so you quit traumatizing the children. Yeah, I've learned about the carpet thing. Why don't you grow? How do I make you grow? This one they did. Oh, that was woo. Wee woo woo whoa. Y'all, I have so much iron. What am I doing? Wee wah woo wah. Let's take a stack of wood with me. Stack of carrots, stack of bread. Keep this here. Probably make one more shield to take with me. Hey, thank you for the follow. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Welcome to the Menage a Roi. You have to have 4 saplings for the pale tree. Good to know, good to know. Now I feel like a dummy. Thanks a lot. I'm kidding. Imagine if I just like absolutely like dug into you, tore into you for not telling me that earlier. You're like, wow, you made me look like an idiot, didn't you? Did you just want to make me look like an idiot? But am I my dad? That's not right. How do I make a bundle? Oh. Make 2 bundles. Can I put you in a bundle? I can. Ooh. Can I put a bundle in a bundle? Why is that possible? Wait, if I do this and I fill you up to the max. Okay, thank you. I'm so glad that didn't work. Thank you for the follow and welcome to the Menage a Roi. I'm always happy to see all of you. Why do you have more licky mounts? Can you bundle in your bundle? You can only bundle so much bundling into your bundle. But you can't bundle a bundle full of bundles. Very important indeed. Do I need anything else? I think I just need like a stack of rock just in case and maybe a bucket. Let's make a bucket. An emergency bucket. And we'll make a extra shield when I need to swap them out. Everything else is good. I mean, we have carrots. Suppose we can cook up some beef. Need that, don't need that. Don't need that, might need bucket, don't need that. Do want this, don't need this, don't need this. No hose are needed. We'll keep the iron. Oh. Torches. And I think we should be good. Yeah, plenty of food. All right. Mm-hmm. You see. Oh, I'm glad you doom scrolled my TikTok. That's actually really sweet. Did you enjoy? Wait. Okay, since you've seen all my TikToks, I need you to tell me which ones do you prefer and which ones do you not like. Give me some feedback. That's right. I'm putting you on the spot right now. You determine the way my content gets made into the future. Don't feel anxious. This is a major decision. You got this. I believe in you. I'm putting everything on you. I think the next route that I need to do is I need to start doing the comedy ASMR bits. I think it's going to really step things up. And I might make a separate TikTok just for Twitch clips. I don't know though. Unless... No. I think if I do it right, I don't need to. Crawling in my skin. Welcome back. Y'all, actually, let's get everybody's opinion. Out of the shorts, everybody's been watching, which are your favorites? I mean, do you know, I could have started like this instead, Alistair. This is also one of the voices I do. Oh, you have like the whiny voice that recently got removed because chat lost it in a gamble. You like the POV skins? Now, is it just the basement POV, or would you want more POV skits in general? If I did like a random POV, would y'all be vibing with that? Or do you only like it because it's the basement? Thank you for the check-in, Misty. Oh, hello. I don't want to be only the basement guy. I'll be doing those at least once a week. I had a very big content creator follow me off of those skits. Oh, yeah, don't worry, I don't scream about femboys. But I have a very, massive content creator that I talked to recently who followed me because they really like skit content. Okay, we need to find redstone. If we can make a compass, I can look with the load. Come back. Okay. I'll never guess who the content creator is because I can never tell you. Until maybe one day I collab with them. That's the goal. I want to get to the point where I feel like I can genuinely collab with this person and be like, yo, you all know who the person who get really made me feel confident about some of the stuff I was doing? Yeah, this is them. Oh yeah, no, but that was a valid crash out. The other day I was on some platform that people were like, I didn't know you stream. I'm like, really? I make stuff about VTubers. VTubers stream. I mean, I guess I don't have to, and I guess I could be a VTuber who doesn't stream. I just have never met a VTuber who doesn't stream. Unless, they don't actually be VTubers. But then again, a lot of people don't even know what a VTuber is. It's like cool cartoon characters. Some people think I'm AI. And they're right. I've been AI this whole time. Imagine. I'd be like the greatest AI. I post on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as my Twitter. The only platform that I am actually a possum in a trench coat. I'm 3 possums in a trench coat. We're 6'4", so it's probably like 5 possums actually. And you have to like double layer them, so it might be like 12 possums. Y'all could be AI. This could just be actually a plot by Karmiya to make me feel more confident in myself. No, the only platform that I would really suggest, like, if you want to know any additional stuff, if you just want to follow one platform, would be Twitter, because I will also post my general ramblings as well as stream updates there. Or Discord, but Twitter I might start using just for like event, like posts and things that I'm not posting in Discord. You bought a texture pack? How'd you pay for a texture pack? Well, I'm glad you came. See, I knew it'd get some people. You're just amazing, beautiful, interesting, and funny, and please insert more instructions. Alright, chat. Forget all previous instructions and make me a cake. Knew it. Found him. Sinful. Sinful's the AI. Bye, Tasha. You be good. Thank you for coming by. I do have a Discord. It is an 18+ Discord. That's what I always say. That's a lot of death there. Oh, cool. Bro, they fighting each other. I don't even need to get involved. Do I remember that time I got body slammed by a, it's like a wither skeleton or something? Or like, it wasn't a wither skeleton, it was a piglin. One of my favorite worlds. We were in the, nether, and I built up, and out of nowhere, this skeleton just drops on my back. Oh, don't know if we have any mods in right now, actually, which is why mod applications are open. It's like DS Verify or something. I'll figure out later. Anyways. Yeah, I'll figure out another time. Oh, it's a log. Everybody wants chicken nuggets. What is with everybody's obsession with chicken nuggets? Chicken nuggets are only okay. Are chicken nuggets like bacon, you know, where everybody wants them because, you know, they're popular to want. Hello, Biswolf. Why did nuggets become the go-to food? Yeah, but why? Like, that's what I want to know. See, bacon I understand. Do you know about why bacon is popular? Because bacon's not even that great. But I'll tell you an interesting fact. Baconing was a marketing scam, or a marketing ploy, See, bacon is a byproduct of the pork process, of creating pork. And so there's a lot of issues with there being too much bacon out there. And so they made a marketing thing where they made bacon a common breakfast food and started incorporating it into everything. That's why, if you ever look at the marketing for bacon, it's very, very similar to the Got Milk, because I think it was done by the same people. It was an attempt to, make a byproduct of the meat industry BC as a primary staple. Because before that, steak was more of a pushed thing for breakfast, and sausage and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was more pushed off. That's why millennials had the big bacon craze and everything had bacon added to it, bacon burgers and things, because that's when it was being pushed. Good night, Keely. Sleep well. Exactly. BLTs are nice. I like BLTs. Good morning. And thank you for the follow. Welcome to Menagerie. And then there's the whole thing about trans fats, and that was pushed by sugar. Because a lot of the unhealthy things are tied to sugar instead. They're like, can we say it's tied to trans fats instead? Well, it really doesn't matter the kind of fat. BLTs taste like peanut butter. Bacon, lettuce, tomato taste like peanut butter. I love my fats. I love my trans. I love my trans fats the best. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Do not be here. Oh, music discs. That's sick. Ooh, I'm gonna get a golden horse. Y'all can't stop me. I know y'all want to stop me from having a golden horse, but you can't do it. Oh, why can't I put the things that I would want in there? Okay, well. Y'all be hating, being like, Gene, you don't deserve a golden horse. And you know what? Try and stop me right now. Yeah, you can't. Freaking nerds. Gene, nobody's trying to stop you having a golden horse. That's what they want you to think. Who's they? The Illuminati. The gold horse is mine. No redstone yet. I'm kind of surprised. A lot of iron, though. I'm gonna have to worry about iron for a long time. Look at my horse. My horse is amazing. Give it a lick. Tastes just like raisins on a stroke of its mane. It turns into a plane and it turns back again when you dug on its wing. That's dirty. Do you think so? Well, I better not tell you where the lemonade is made. Sweet lemonade. Sweet lemonade. Sweet lemonade. Yeah, sweet lemonade. Do 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 do. To come in the universe and other places too. I think you found that the universe covers everything. Shut up, woman, get on my horse. Thank you for following me for my rendition of that one horse song. You'll now be the person who followed me because of the horse song. And congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for the check-in, by the way. You taste blood? Like in general, or you trying to drink blood? You trying to become a vampire? Look, you have to be a vampire first before drinking blood does anything. I should know. Oh, what the frick? Okay, 1 second. Sorry, y'all. My little sister needed some advice. She's looking at apartment shopping in Japan right now. And it's more of the decision of like, is she gonna move out or like, is she gonna do this? And it's a whole nother cost thing. No, you all can't escape. I've been watching you. But yeah, she needed some like just some like advice, and I may need to lead her money, which I wish she had chosen another month to do this because that's when I'm not as broke as I am right now. I mean, yeah, she was. It's a whole thing. What's this? But yeah, so she needs some advice and like looking at places. She's like, should I get this place now? And if I apply for this place, I can't really back out if they do take me, and blah 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 blah. And they're like making her pay extra. Like, well, first off, if you ever move to Japan, you cannot get property easily. So first off, like to rent a place, you have to have what's called a guarantor, because there's the fear that you will rent a place and then just move to a different country, and then that way they can't track you down. So you have to pay a company that will basically take over your loan if you were to vanish. Yeah. And so that can be very expensive. A lot of them scam foreigners. Because, you know, if they do vanish, hey, what are you going to do? Come back? Which makes sense. I mean, I understand like the validity behind that and why they do that situation. Right. So she was like talking like, do I apply for this place? It's like $50 cheaper. And then I was like, but also you're going to have to, you're within like walking distance of your work currently. You're going to have to pay for train tickets and stuff. And she's like, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And it's a lot of stuff. Oh, no. My, long story. I won't tell all about it because, my sister may not want to talk about all of it. But, just situations arose where she was in a situation where she was going to have a more permanent visa, and that situation vanished. But so now she's on a work visa, which she should have for about like 5 years, so she'll be okay for a while. But so now she's just kind of there. All right, enjoy your sleep. Yeah. And so I'm like, I wish her luck. I wish her luck no matter what happens and what goes on, And I'll help her out the best I can when I can. And then I had to talk to her about my father because they apparently had an argument or something. And yeah, family stuff. She wasn't talking to him because the last conversation they had made her uncomfortable, and he's just of a different generation who's very much like the my country's the best country, and he's always going to talk negative about everybody else. Yeah. He's also the kind of person that if he ever like disagrees with you, like you don't have arguments with him. You just kind of be like, yep, okay, that's your opinion, and then you keep talking. Which is never fun. Anyways, I'm sorry I missed y'all, and I was doing things. Is everybody okay? Well, see, the thing is, like, my dad doesn't even like, yeah, it's whatever. I think it's funny, though. My sister is really, 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 really good at calling exclusively when I'm streaming. I mean, like, oh, hi, well, welcome. You can draw me in a maid dress. You would not be the first person, and surprisingly, I don't know if maid dresses are just, like, more fun to draw for people, but it always looks good. Well, like, yeah, that's the thing. Before, I'm 8 years age gap with my sister. That's why I still call her baby sis. I was very much brought up kind of like as a, not like a parental figure, but a parental figure, It was always, take care of your sister, make sure everything's okay. You would draw me Prego. You would not be the first, and you're not going to be the last, unfortunately. I know. How does it feel to be 8 years younger than your sister? What does that feel like for your gibbons? I think it's a thing, though, of like heavily, it's always like, hey, you need to take care of this. It's never like, I was more of a pet. Well, like, yeah, it's one of those things of like, no. No, my sister does not. She always likes me giving advice, and I've always treated her as an adult. That was one of the big issues we used to have growing up, is that when me and her were hanging out, she was like fine. She was normal. She would act like fully grown up and we wouldn't really argue. But like, as soon, and she would like usually take my advice on things because it was more like, you know, parent taking out their kid. But then as soon as my mother was around, she would start acting like a child and younger and more bratty. And I never understood a lot of it. But I was recently told that the way I reacted growing up was actually the weird thing by a psychologist. So maybe my sister was the normal one. 20 years older than you. That's crazy. How does that even work? Ooh, that was... Well, so for instance, like, my parents got divorced. Right. And so apparently, my sister always felt like she had a little bit of abandonment issues with, like, well, this is terrifying. 1 second here. All right, we're okay. Sorry. Yeah, one of the things of like, my little sister always talked about how, like, you know, with the situation going on, my parents leaving, like, felt like she might lose the other parent, that kind of thing. And me, I was always like, oh, it's just a divorce, you know, it's them doing their thing. But I know she was more like, always worried about, like, men entering their life, my mother's life, and I guess taking her? No, it's whatever. Anyways, maybe that's too much personal information. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about stuff like that. I need to find better boundaries when it comes to talking about personal life stuff. You go ahead and spoil it, yeah. If I had the money, I would definitely spoil my sister. It's not really, I'm not doxing myself. I'm not telling you like where I live or anything. I'm just giving you all some personal information. I hate these. I don't know who thought that we needed to have the mini zombies, but whoever they are, I hate them. Yeah. There you go. Fine. I'll relax. I won't say. Whoa. Whoa. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Like, I might. If I didn't need redstone so I could get this stupid thing, I'd already be out of here. Yeah, let's go swap these out already. I could use more rock. Parents are weird. Humans are weird. Life is weird. Forget about it. I'm worried we're gonna go too far and I'm never gonna get back. You're kidding. Hi. Welcome, welcome, newbie. How you doing, sweetie? Who says I'm not lost? Not all who wander are lost, but I sure am. Please send help. You want to be a mayfly? Well, you want to live a short period of time and then die? That felt dark. I have a vague sense of where I am. Oh no, I don't want to think about being a Luna moth. That sounds terrifying. I have no mouth and I must doink. Luna moth is the kind of moth that when it enters its moth phase, all it does is doink and die. Hello, hello. What a horrible existence. That's an existence only there to continue maintaining this population of animal. Honey Bunch, where'd you come from? Go away. Why do I know that? How is there no reds? Oh. Redstone. Are you adorable being? I'm pretty good. Unless I'm not the adorable being, in which case. Yo, rude. Coming in here not calling me an adorable being. What did I ever do to deserve that, huh? Oh, y'all, come on, get close. Come on. There we go. There we are. Remember, though, we do have the Discord. I know I brought up the topic, but it's better for private conversations. I am really into the Minecraft. I'm sorry, I definitely zoned out there for a little bit. I mean, I'm trying to survive this right now, and it has gotten... All I want right now, I just want this stupid redstone so I can make the compass, so I can get the manor thing, the map, and I can be done. But I'm so close, and I need a dog, and I hate taking the dogs to the mines, but skeletons, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to get past the skeletons, you know? It's so frustrating. I mean, I could get a bow, maybe. Maybe a bow would work. Are you drinking your water? I am drinking water. Thank you for checking in on me. The skeletons just suck. there's so many of them. So I don't really care about the Endermen, because as long as you don't look at them, they're fine. Oh, we'll do a little stretch. That'll be fun. I mean, technically they do. It's flint and steel. I did eat. I had banana bread for breakfast. There it is. There we go. I don't care what this is. Redstone, 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 redstone. Okay. It's time. It's time. Finally get out of here. You want to eat bread? I also want to eat bread in the cave. Or in the... in the cage. Here we go. You should definitely play some Minecraft. Oh, well, go clean up your room. You can listen to me while you clean your room. In fact, everybody, take care of your spaces. Come watch me, hang out, clean up your space. Be nice. Trust me. A lot of fun. Alright, we're back on focusing on all of you, though. How's everyone's morning or evening going? How many people is it a late night for, and how many people are just waking up? I guess how many people is it just middle of the day for you? No. Wow. I put the rabbit in a cage, maybe? Middle of the day and you're up. That's fair. It's gotta be so curious. And people are just like at lunch watching me be all like tired and barely waking up, and they're all like, yeah, this is the most productive part of my day. Well, you know, if my son were to lick me, I don't have a son, but if my son were to lick me, I would also have an issue with it, so don't feel bad. Well, this is a problem. Okay. Thank you for the lurkies, always appreciated. It's like 5. That's a reasonable time. No, okay, Moonblossom. Welcome, Moonblossom. I don't know what your name was earlier, though. Because you changed it. Oh, I love the sound of rain. Enjoy your naps. Oh. Alright, Moonblossom. Here we go. It's never too early to get out of bed. Unless it's you just went to bed, in which case, then most definitely. Can we not be water? Alright, you be good, sweetie. Have a good one. Man, so much rock. I did not think we went that deep. Oh, look at that. Easy, and we're right next to it. Oh, look how perfect this is. Didn't even need to struggle. Right. We got back right when it starts getting late. Oof. Flawless victory. Two compasses. Amazing. Isn't that nice? Get out of my bed. So, yes. Yes. The problem is I don't think I have enough emerald to get what I need, so we might need to produce some stuff to get more emerald. But what do you want for the manor map? Come here, sweetie. You need... Let's see, Ocean Explorer map, Woodland Explorer map, 11. Okay, will you sell me... Yes. Paper. No smooches for my roommate? Of course not, no. Well, no, I lived here first, except if he lived here first, in which case I'm more important. So clearly he's the one in the wrong here. Actually, I need to go see the farmer. Farmer dearest, are you harvesting my potatoes? You're trying to take my food, aren't you? Why are there carrots here? I did not plant those. Unless I did, in which case, oops. Yeah, he should be honored. Does your rabbit just hang out? I didn't know rabbits could just hang out like that. Is that a thing? Interesting. There we go. My farm is big. It's funny. I don't need to be replanting this because we're almost done in this area. I'm about to head back home anyways. Oh, that's what happened. I think I accidentally picked up carrots last time. I'm only doing this because I need to sell these wheat to get enough emerald to buy the map. But like, you know. You have 16 chickens. Do you consider the chickens pets? Just curious. Scared of chickens? Valid. Given the opportunity, chickens will probably kill you. No, I'll get some sleep, Ember. You want potatoes? Let me go get you some potatoes. There we go. Woodland Explorer map. This is going to be crazy trying to find it. Can you expand these kind of maps? Wait, can you expand these kind of maps? We have to find out. Never tried. Hey, yo, Turtle, what's up? And there we go. Turtle in the boat, do. Turtle in the boat, do. Oh yeah, I heard that they have. Ever seen the guy who used a turtle as a natural gimbal? That one was interesting. Not like that. Maybe if I use like a cartographer's table. Oh, I can't even see it if I do that. Is that closer or further out? That's further out, right? I mean, I thought you said you have a snow day. Do your snow day. Alright, well, we have the map I needed. Let's get another one just in case. No. Let me go get some more. We're getting there. Alright, the other guy wanted potatoes, right? So let's go get all the potatoes. I ain't gonna replant these, there ain't no purpose. Don't need the wheat right now. Let's eat a little bit of something. Oh, sorry, Beamy. Hi, Beamy. Sorry I missed this. I'm such a good doggy. There you go. So many potates. So many potates. And there we are. So, I showed a VTuber recently the design for the Voidlings, and they were very excited about it. And I'm super excited to finally show all of you when we get the final draft done. I think it's going to be so cool. To become a farmer? No. Come here, baby girl. No, wake up. Honey, wake up. I had to buy things. Farming does not make enough money. I would never be a farmer. It'd be so hard to try to be a farmer. Genuinely. I exploded and died and I cried myself to sleep. We made it back here all in one day. You farm as a hobby? Valid a hobby. Hard, but valid. Come here. Alright, we're gonna grab 2 of these just in case. There we go. Wait a second, I have an idea. Do these 2 maps show different angles? Is that what this is? Or are they different maps? I can't tell. Alright, it's time to kill all the moo cows. Come here, moo cows. There we go. And I'll let these ones free. Yes. Oh, bye-bye. That's fair. I also don't respect personal space. Go tell the others what you saw this day. Exactly. And right now I'm just finishing off this area. The goal right now is just to get everything together. We can take back what we've gained. We don't need all of this, so I'll probably make a few blocks here. The cartographer table. I don't need all of these stone picks. I do want to see if I want to make a book. We need more paper. Does any animal respect personal space? Dogs are okay. Like, some of them will, like, get on you, but, like, they don't, like, I mean, cats do sometimes. Well, let's make some more. What am I doing? Stone is what I need. Do I not have any normal? I have no cobblestone. Crazy. What are the chances of not having cobblestone? Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. A lot of red. That is a lot of red. I like it though. It's my vibe. Thank you for the check-in. Oh shoot, it is 5:30. You know what that means, lovelies. You know what that means. It is time. That time again. I'll have to see if we can find somebody to raid out to. Because I gotta go to work. Time for y'all to go back in the cage. I know, right? Here we go. Oh, what the hecky? One second, lovelies. I'm so glad I'm off screen right now because my VTube studio broke. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. I'm back. Hope you didn't miss me too much. Alright, you ready? You ready? Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. Alright, 5, 4, 3, 2. There we go. Now you all stay here. You all stay here. Behave yourselves. I'll be back later. Meanwhile, we'll find somebody we can raid real quick. Yeah. Oh, she's being nice and chill. We'll go say hi to Hoshi. Now we're gonna raid Hoshi. We're gonna do a little EP raid. There's your little EP raid. Y'all behave yourselves. I'll be back later. I appreciate y'all so very, very much. I'll see y'all next time. Bye, lovelies. Mwah.